Is the Oregon City Commission. This is Wednesday, January 21st. Good evening. I'm Alice Norris, the mayor.
Oh, Daphne West, Commission President.
James Nasita, Commissioner.
Doug Neely, Commissioner.
Rocky Smith, Commissioner.
Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? As you may or may not know, this year is Oregon's sesquicentennial, its 150th birthday, and at every meeting you get to have a sesquicentennial moment where we will have a little known fact about Oregon City, or at least a little known to me. This one is from, I don't actually know which Oregon City paper, and I don't know which year. It's early 1900s, and this was courtesy of Dan Fowler. First notice, November 27th, early 1900. Oregon City, historic capital of the greatest state in the Northwest, home of the father of Oregon, Dr. John McLaughlin, has a new distinction thrust upon it. This beautiful city by the falls of the Willamette, famed in history and more famed in commercial records, is the first great city in Oregon to have a woman candidate for mayor. She is Kate L. Newton, long a resident of Oregon City and a fighter for the rights of all, such as only women can be. Mrs. Newton is perfectly sincere in this political business, and she has strong backing. Opposed to Mrs. Newton is Lynn E. Jones, whose home sits down on the McLaughlin Promenade, who has served in the state legislature. Now, December 2nd, 406 women out of an eligible 500 voted in the municipal election here today. Mrs. Kate L. Newton, the first woman candidate for mayor in Oregon, was defeated. She received 173 votes to 1,009 that were cast for Lynn E. Jones, her successful rival. Mrs. Dora Blanchard, the first woman to vote in Oregon City, cast her ballot at the polls in the 2nd Ward promptly at 8 o'clock. She marked her ballot in less than 2 minutes and, neatly folding it, presented it to the election officers with a graceful bow and "I thank you," and took her departure. The women voted in far greater numbers than was expected, and all but a few entered the booths without having to ask for instructions. They were far more prompt in arriving at the voting places and much more enthusiastic than the men. The X's made by them were also much neater and made with greater care than those made by members of the other sex. This really is out of the newspaper. Many amusing incidents are reported by the election officers. Parasols, umbrellas, handkerchiefs, gloves, and fur muffs were some of the articles left at the polling places. In few instances did women go to the polls alone. They were accompanied by husbands, brothers, or male friends. One bright little chap who escorted 5 fair voters to the polls said at the close of the election that he had enjoyed the work a great deal and was about 50 cents better off as a result. Here ends your sesquicentennial moment.
It's kind of interesting in how that was worded, that she did not have to ask. If she were a man, she wouldn't have bothered anyway.
There you go. Next, we have actually another sesquicentennial thing that actually is not on the agenda this evening, but we are honoring 2 students who did something very special for the sesquicentennial. On what day was that? Monday. Oh,
Monday.
Wednesday, January the
14th.
One month prior to the sesquicentennial. We had the official unveiling of the sesquicentennial stamp. I'm going to hold that up.
So then I drop it. That's so slippery.
And our postmaster, who is here this evening, where are you? Dan, would you please come forward? He took it upon himself to organize a very special first day issue, first day postmark, and first day cover. Everybody else's postmark in the state said Sesquicentennial Station, and ours, thanks to Dan, said First City Station. So we had probably about 100 people here who enjoyed that. And the other thing that happened is he partnered with none other than our own Commissioner Rocky Smith, who also with his other hat teaches art at Oregon City High School, who had a contest. Well, you can tell about what you did.
Well, I have a graphic design class at Oregon City High School, and so as one of the student projects, each of the students were able to design a design for the envelope for the first day cancellation. And so there's about 25 to 30 designs, and those are some of the final designs. And then the postmaster actually looked at them all and chose the top two, and those are up there on the top, and those were the designs that were used. The first one by Cody Hodling, and the second one by Heather Winslow. And they're both here tonight, so
And I
I'll let
believe
you do.
you have a presentation.
Your mayor is very gracious. She was actually the one that got me started on this project. I took over as postmaster of Oregon City 2 years ago, and I'd been a station manager in a large station in Portland and didn't get to do all the festivities that a local postmaster gets to do. So I've been waiting for one of these for 22 years or so of my career. Alice came to my office one day, knocked on the door, says, "We need to talk." She says, "Do you know that this is Oregon's 150th birthday?" She goes, "I'd like to do something special for Oregon City. What do you think?" And so we put our heads together, and she helped me recruit Rocky, and we came to this process. It's a phenomenal process. These two young artists, the quality of the artwork they did was just phenomenal. I've had over 300 requests just in the last week for stamp collectors across the country for their artwork, which
So
is
does that mean they're professional now?
very, very significant. Cody and Heather, would you come up, please? Congratulations, Cody and Heather. Your artwork was chosen to be placed on the special Oregon City, Oregon's First City cover envelopes. These envelopes were to be used to help celebrate the issuance of the Oregon Sesquicentennial stamp in Oregon City last Wednesday on January 14th, 2009. The artistic montages that you created capture the iconic essence of Oregon City. Your family, friends, and fellow citizens can feel proud that one of their own has created such wonderful depiction of the symbols to identify the city that we all love. I would again like to personally thank you for your artistic contribution. Your involvement made the First City Station celebration a resounding success. From people all around the country have asked for these cover envelopes. Good luck in the future. I know you have the right stuff to be someone special. So this is for Cody. This is for Heather. As recognition for their time and effort, here's some postal art for Heather. Here's some postal art for Cody. And this is for you, Alice.
Oh, how nice. Thank you so much.
Come see me. I'm at the top of the hill.
Do you still have sesquicentennial stamps left? You'll have them all year or till they run out?
Until they run out.
Okay.
And I still have the envelope for sale.
In front of the mayor.
Let me come down. Can we do me back there?
Awesome. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you. The next item on our, yes, and, oh, yes, you all may, I'm sure you would like to stay through the agenda, but you're free to leave now if you wish. Thank you for coming and supporting your students. There'll be a few diehards left.
I was wondering what on the commission that brought so many people.
I guess it's all Cody's family and friends. And
Looks like it, yeah. Bye, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to the next agenda item, and that is citizen comment, which is an opportunity for citizens to comment on items that are not on the agenda this evening. We have sign-up cards, so we would encourage you to do that if you're going to speak to us. And then when we call you up, please come, and you have a light that will flash when you're 30 seconds before your time. Ooh, I missed something. I'm going to back up. The report from the task force of the, yes, I guess we better have that, huh? That's a pretty important thing.
Might be good.
So we'll back up. Citizen comment, it still applies when you come to the microphone to talk to us. Please do state your name and the city in which you reside. Then you may begin. So who is making this report? Is it Betty Mum?
Betty Mum and William Gifford.
And William
we
Gifford.
both live in Oregon City.
Great, thank you.
And I filled out my little card, ma'am. Madam Mayor, fellow commissioners, we felt it was time to kind of give you a formal update of what has been happening with the CIC, which is actually not Citizen Involvement Committee, it's actually Citizen Involvement Council. So that was discovered, and that's what we'll be going by. We have had 4 meetings since August 15th, or August 4th. And we did present a proposal, which William's going to speak to you about at your work session, and we just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on what was happening. We have, and I would like if anybody is from the Neighborhood Association that has served on this committee, they could stand and you could acknowledge them. There's been a lot of hard work.
Great, thank you. Would you like to acknowledge them by name, Betty?
Oh,
I think that would be good.
Kathy Hogan. Karen Maury was there. Steve
Van Haverbeek.
Paul Williams.
Paul Edgar. Patty Brown.
Patty Brown and Ron Hess.
And Ron Hess. Okay.
Okay. Well, I have their names right here for you. That will be coming to you.
And we
next.
all have a handout, too, that you provided. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Well, anyways, we had good discussion. We had a few concerns. One was the newsletter that the neighborhood associations put out. They're very concerned about that. We will be addressing that as we go along. Our next official meeting will be tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, at the fire station on 7th Street.
7th and John Adams.
7th and John Adams. And we will be electing a board and looking at bylaws, looking at boundaries, looking at how we're going to get the other neighborhoods reactivated and moving again and becoming engaged. And I think Oregon City is just coming into its own. A lot of citizen involvement, which was one of your goals, goal number 5. And from what I understand, it's also been a goal of the Oregon City Police Department. So with that, Chris Taylor from the Oregon City Police Department will be our Neighborhood Association Coordinator. And I'm sure Larry could speak to that, and Mike. And I will turn it over to Mike, or to William, so he can talk about the proposal.
Well, you said everything now.
Oh, sorry.
Betty actually thought it'd be a good idea for us to get this proposal formally on the record. We've only presented it at a work session before, and so we thought it would be good to present it again. I don't think that we need to reread the whole thing, and in the interest of time, I'll just say it's the same proposal that we had last time. The only wrinkle has been Mr. Patterson's cooperation with us.
That's a wrinkle?
No, that's the only change to this.
Oh, okay.
Is that we had been anticipating in this proposal that there would be a full-time position of a PIO, a public information officer, which would be serving half-time as facilitating communications interdepartmentally for the city, and the other half-time being a neighborhood association coordinator. And we were proposing in the proposal that we initially submitted that would be funded through through a combination of techniques such as the monies that were initially dedicated to neighborhood communication, mostly for newsletters, and asking contributions of some other funds as well. The interim compromise that I think that has been struck we have a half-time position available, thanks to police staffing, that is going to be able to serve the function of the neighborhood association coordinator. That does not fulfill the needs of the PIO position, but we expect that it's going to bridge the gap until we are able to get on more solid ground. We think that Chris Taylor is well known to the neighborhoods, understands a number of things. She obviously will be needing more training in land use issues and perhaps some other communication things. One of our hopes for having a full staff position would be that person would have a little higher profile in the surrounding communities. But we expect we'll be able to grow into that. But the point is, right now, we think that the neighborhoods can do a lot by sharing ideas and working together as a council. And so we're happy that we have the cooperation to get that done. And we're starting off our first meeting tomorrow night. And I'm not sure there's anything else to say.
Well, we're just very excited to have this get to this point. It's been a long road, and there's just been a lot of discussion and a lot of participation, and so it's exciting to see it come to this point. And thank you to City for providing Chris Taylor as that person. And we'll come back in a year and give you a report.
And ask
Thank
if there's
you.
any questions the council will ask.
Yes, I have a question. The council will be made up of one person from each neighborhood association?
We
What's-
have not
We're-
actually determined that. We
yeah.
have
You
bylaws
don't know the
that
makeup yet.
address it generally, but we imagine, what we're imagining so far is that there will be at least one representative from each neighborhood association. Because some of the neighborhood associations aren't active yet, part of our goal will be to sort of bootstrap us up and get some of the other neighborhoods more active. That participation has not included in the bylaws, because they didn't exist at the time, the Downtown Merchants Association. Are they still called that? Downtown Merchants Association? Business Alliance?
Downtown Business Alliance.
Whatever they're called.
Coalition.
Polish? What?
Coalition.
Oh, coalition.
Downtown
This is-
Business Coalition.
The Polish business.
This is all going to be hashed out tomorrow evening. We're going to elect the board, and then the board will take a look at the bylaws with the rest of the committee and kind of figure out how that's all going to fit together.
There are a couple of other issues, specifically boundaries. The existing boundaries do not include parts of the city limits, especially the Clackamas Cove, the Cove, the Rivers area, and so on. And if there are going to be residences there, they probably are going to want some neighborhood representative, and we're going to address those issues yet. But nothing has been chiseled in concrete, and probably never will be. But we're working on it, sort of as we go along.
Commissioner West.
They answered my question
Oh.
of who was going to attend the meeting.
Oh.
That's what I was going to ask.
Commissioner Smith.
My questions regarding the halftime is from the police department. I'm assuming that's not off the street.
Oh, no. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
actually,
Can you explain?
we get their squad car as well, and they'll be fully armed. No, this is an administrative assistant
Yeah.
position.
Let's
No.
let Mr. Patterson explain that.
Mr. Patterson.
As you know, this has been a fairly lengthy process with a lot of discussion about how to fund this, and of course, the combination of a neighborhood association coordinator and a PIO, there's that debate, is this a new program or an extension of an old program? As we were going through this, we've had some changes at the city, and to her credit, Chris Taylor is a very efficient individual, and because of that, she can turn out a lot of work. Now, trouble with efficient individuals, sometimes they drive themselves crazy because they just, they keep looking for tasks to take on. And so Chris went to Chief Conrad and said, I'd like to volunteer to pick that piece up. Chief Conrad has looked at that in terms of the needs of the police department and felt, let's try to provide half of her time to the neighborhood association coordination, and then there's still things that she will be doing for the police department. The I think the advantage here is it allows the city to preserve the budget that you have for newsletters and a little assistance to the neighborhood association. This definitely puts it more into the realm of maintenance of a program or the reestablishing a program versus anything new. And it's one of those things we're just going to have to kind of walk through and see. It depends really on what the demands are. Again, I think the chief and Chris feel that they can handle this, but it's like all the things we're going to take. Sometimes they grow to the point that we have to kind of grow with it, but we can address that as we move down the road. I think there's still some issues from a city perspective in terms of neighborhood associations and standing at land use that you're probably going to want to weigh in on in terms of what is the requirement to make sure that we truly are reaching out and the communication doesn't stop just at the neighborhood association committee, and particularly if that is a small group of people gathering, there truly is outreach in that community. But those are things we'll just work out as we move through this time.
Commissioner
Thank you. That's great. I do see the amazing possibility. I mean, I know Chris very well, and she's been involved in the Optimist Club and a lot of other community groups, and so I don't have any doubts that she wouldn't do a great job. The partnership between the police department and the neighborhoods also creates an incredible opportunity for community policing, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm kind of excited by that possibility. So that's interesting.
It's a real win-win for everybody, I think.
Okay, thanks.
Good.
Other questions?
Sounds like
The last punchline is that Larry touched a little bit on communication. We wanted to very clearly understood that we see the role of the CIC as a conduit bidirectionally. We hope to be able to take issues from the neighborhoods and bring them to the City Council. And we certainly hope that the City Council, when they want to disseminate information early on, that they'll be able to get feedback by coming through the CIC and back down to the neighborhood associations.
Yeah, I think we've always agreed that it should be two-way.
Yes.
So, well,
Absolutely.
we got the first step. Let us know how it goes Thursday, tomorrow night. Thank you. Now, citizen comment. I have, William, was that what you were signing up for?
No.
You have another comment? Okay. I just have one card for citizen comment this evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Again, William Gifford, Oregon City. Just as a citizen's comment, I want to very much extend appreciation and thanks to the city for providing the ability to pay utility bills online. I just think that's really great. The savings in postage, the savings in hassles, and the efficiency of being able to pay online, I really, really appreciate it. Maybe someday we'll be able to get to the point where bills are not, or envelopes are not being sent out to people that pay online as well.
No, go ahead.
That envelopes would not need to be mailed out to people that are paying online as well.
Oh.
There's some
That's
additional
unheard of.
savings that are available. And one last comment regarding utility bills is that I thought that the council had, my time is starting. I thought that the council had agreed that, no, I've got 2 minutes and 51 seconds. Had agreed that the title of the new fee that was listed on the utility bill is the pavement maintenance fee, and it's still being listed on the
Yeah.
utility bill as a.
We're working on that.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah, and I've noticed I've been paying online for a long time on my computer, and those envelopes don't go away very easily. So, but thank you. That's a good suggestion. Any, for Thomas Chavez?
Thank you for providing the citizen comment time. I'm new to the city. I've been here about 18 months, and really very, very pleased with being part of Oregon City. And I'm just moving my way into seeing how the game is played in terms of competing efforts and interests. My comment right now is that my concern, hearing a lot of rumor and discussion away from official areas about urban renewal activities, and been concerned to see how the plans are working, and just want to bring up the idea that it might be useful to broaden the conversation about what already is in the works and what will happen as time goes on. There will be other urban renewal products other than those that are currently in the works. So to ask that the city consider referring urban renewal projects to the voters, do the work of explaining how things have been decided, how things have been looked at, and so that there can be greater discussion right across the populace. Christ the Healer, which is a spiritual community where I work, has had at one point 4 various meetings a week in 3 counties, one of which in Washington County in Beaverton. And we were, because we were always there, we were able to see what happened with the city-sponsored The Round project, and what a mess happened for that city. It was very, very painful for the people of Beaverton and for the people who had done what was obviously an excellent concept and was a great hope, really became a millstone. And I think that might have been avoided had there been a greater participation for a longer period of time. And I would just like to suggest that Oregon City adopt ordinances about voting and doing the conversation to make the vote meaningful early.
Thank you very much. Okay, next, we will look at the agenda. Is there any commissioner that wishes to have anything on the consent agenda pulled for separate review? Okay, we will take the agenda then, if there's no reason to reorganize it, in the order in which it is given. We do have one change. Item 7B has been pulled and will be on the February 4th agenda. Okay. The first item is item 6A, and that is an ordinance 8-1009, an amendment to the Oregon City Transportation System Plan. This has been continued from November 19th, and the recommendation from staff is that we continue it to March 4th. And I believe we need to have a motion to move it to that date certain. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Commissioner Neely, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Is there any discussion? Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Nasita.
Aye.
Mayor Norris.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Next, 7B, Resolution 9-01. This is new building mechanical, electrical, and plumbing permit fees. And for that, we have our building official, Guy Spurb.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Welcome to the new Commissioners, Mr. Smith and Mr. Nocita. This has been in front of the Commission a number of times. However, because we do have 2 new Commissioners, I would ask your indulgence in a little background, if I may. In the 1999 legislature, through a bill passed through the Home Builders Association, building department fees across the state of Oregon were to be designated in building department funds, and those building department revenues were then used or to be used only for building department expenditures. So as a result of that, the building department, the Oregon City Building Department, works within the boundaries of a designated fund within the building department. In 2001, I implemented a fee increase, took a fee increase in front of the City Commission to build up a reserve contingency fund so that we would be able to survive the ebbs and flows of the construction industry. Over a period of couple of years, we built up a pretty large contingency to the point where we had about 10 or 11 months worth of contingency built up. Over a period of years, that contingency has declined and has continued to decline. We have not had a fee increase in the building department since mid-May of 2001. During that time period, the cumulative cost of living increase for the Portland metropolitan area that we base it upon has increased 20.45%. So when I was looking at determining the amount of fees to adjust to, because they had not been adjusted in quite some time, since 2001, and I didn't feel comfortable adjusting fees when we had a contingency buildup. Well, the old saying that timing is everything really strikes here. I started working on this in May and June, and I sent a required notification to the State of Oregon Building Codes Division just before I went on vacation, as was required that I give them a 45-day notification. Then it's set out for public hearing. It's set up on their website, and I had to hold a public hearing, and as you see in your packet, that was held in September. But because I sent them an electronic copy, the State of Oregon Building Codes Division said that was not suitable, so it had to be a hard copy. So that delayed it up until September, and then once September, then it went to October, and then October went to November and December, and I've been going through this process because of 2 days, because they would not accept an electronic copy versus a hard copy. So I did a comparison of all the fees in surrounding jurisdictions, and I found that Oregon City's fees were far below those of neighboring jurisdictions. Being cognizant of the fact that we are in an economic downturn and being sensitive to the needs of the construction communities and home builders, I didn't want to raise them too high. But I did want to put Oregon City in the middle of the pack, because if we don't, we will continue to fall farther and farther behind. As a result, the building permit fees are being proposed at 25%, 33% on residential, mechanical, larger than that on commercial. And the city has an agreement with the county that we adopt their plumbing and electrical fees. Those fees were implemented in July of 2008, and because I wanted to bring all of the fee increases in front of the Commission at one time, I did not try to implement those. I wanted to spare you the burden of reviewing all those more than one time. Partly because of the concerns addressed at the December City Commission meeting, even though this had gone through the public hearing comment and people had the opportunity to come to the building department and make comment both in person and through the Building Codes Division open web process, I contacted Ernie Platt of the Home Builders Association last week, and I talked to Ernie, and I said, Ernie, I says, I've got a fee increase, as you're probably aware of, and I wanted to talk to you about it. And he says, well, Guy, he says, I'm very much in favor of building departments pulling their own weight. He said, I will never oppose that. He said, what I do oppose is building departments that help subsidize the general fund. And I says, well, justifiably so. But I said, is there anything that we can do, from your opinion, that is going to make this easier to swallow? And he said, yeah. He said, Guy, he said, you could phase that in. You could implement it. I says, well, I've given notification. This has been working on this since August, and I have told all the contractors in the Oregon City area that I intend to do a fee increase. And as a result, we have a very large project going on out on Sequoia project. That's 119 condos and about 250 total units. Those have been submitted. Those are not going to be affected by this. The sewer treatment plant for the Tri-Cities is everything is in. Everything, of course, everything that has been submitted prior to the implementation of the fee increase will not be affected, even though it has not been issued. We go by the submittal date. So I wanted to provide clarification here that any of these fees that would be implemented are not going to affect anything that has not been. So my proposal then to the City Commission, in working in cooperation with the Home Builders Association, is to split the implementation dates, move it back to February 1st, as I indicated in my addendum, or revision there, to have half of the fees for the building permits and the mechanical permits implemented effective on the 1st of February, and then a 6-month delay, so that the remainder of those fees would be implemented on the 1st of August. That date was actually recommended by the Home Builders Association, and Ernie really didn't have any concerns about the mechanical because there's such a small portion of the fees, but it was a good faith effort on my part to split them and make them both effective. So I've worked very diligently with the Home Builders Association and the local area builders. Haven't tried to make anything secretive about this. Made ourselves available, and through the entire process, I've yet to receive one complaint. So I would certainly make myself available to ask any questions, to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioners? Commissioner Neely.
The one I have, our fees for the electricity and the plumbing, the county does the excuse me, I'm not doing very well. The county does the inspections on that, correct?
I have a contract with Clackamas County Building Division where they do our plan reviews and inspections. I administer the program, or Oregon City administers the program. All of the permits are issued through Oregon City. All of the inspection requests come into Oregon City. I just have an individual contract with them. It's a 70-30 split.
Now, the mechanical and building, we do our own inspections, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, my question is this, the counties raised theirs last year,
In
right?
July.
In July. And we're doing ours now. Did we lose any money in the process? That is, I presume if they've increased their fees, do the inspections cost us more?
No, we charge our fees based upon our fee schedules. So it hasn't cost us anything.
Okay.
Okay, we did not implement a fee table, or a fee increase, Doug, so.
And they charge their I presume they're charging us something, the county.
Our cooperative agreement is a 70-30 split. All electrical and plumbing revenues are split 70% to the county and 30% to the city.
Thank you.
And it's based upon the revenue, not what they charge, so.
There's Commissioner Smith.
Question regarding, you had mentioned since 2001 that we have built a cushion. And my question is, how big is that cushion now? and the reason I ask that is because, I'm concerned, obviously building a cushion was there for the purpose that if building did slow down, we would have that cushion. But I think the added effect with the paying the extra rent for space, for offices, et cetera, has kind of also been a part of that drain on the that contingency. So my question really is how long would that contingency last? I mean, obviously we don't want to go through it, but what is there in terms of time?
I would defer that question to the amount that's left in that contingency to our finance director. Okay.
He's working
So
on it.
our Commissioner Smith, just for when David does get some numbers here, the budget for the building department is about 1.1 to 1.2 million annually. So we need about $100,000 a month to as an operating fee. Now, some of those fees are pass-through fees, and we collect systems development fees.
And of that 100,000, 8,000 is 8,500 is rent. I'm taking the number $102,400 and dividing by 12, which is $8,533 for rent.
Our rent is about $8,000 a month.
Okay. I was thinking while I sat at my house reading this, or my apartment, that I could rent 10 more apartments, 2-bedroom apartments, full garages, for the same price a month.
I don't know
Anyway,
if 10
just to
houses would work too well for us.
I understand that. I understand that.
Are you finished? Okay. Dave, do you have the numbers yet?
Yeah, 280,000.
Okay, I'm sorry, did you say that already?
Contingency or what?
Well, that's not what the fund balance is.
Ending fund?
How much?
Started at 484, and after 6 months, we're down to 280.
280,000 is remaining. Okay.
So 2.8 months,
Thank you.
roughly.
8 months, okay. Commissioner Nocita.
Mr. Spur, a question for you regarding staffing levels. When we have an economic downturn like this, obviously we don't have as many construction projects to go out and inspect and things like that. What, how active is the staff in the building department now? Do we lay off people in tough times like this? Are people underutilized in times like this? What exactly is the situation right now?
Well, building department staff personnel is, in all building department activity is always cycling. It's always going up and down. And traditionally, we have several months during the winter time that are downtimes. It's usually November and December and January. But we have been down lower than normal. But what we also have is this large construction project out at Sequoia Landing that is going to be about 300 units. That development has to be finished through, as I understand it, through the terms of their financing agreement within 2 years. So while we may be in an economic downturn now, as far as inspection activity, we have a number of projects that are coming in that will boost that activity up. And that's always excuse me.
You might want to mention the archiving project that you've started.
Well, we had about 150 years of building department archiving that we had. The records retention was the storage trailer out here in the back, and we've been working for about 2 years to get that electronically archived. So that's a pretty extensive as well as extensive project. And there are always things that when you're too busy, Mr. Nacita, you just can't get to. So that's what we're trying to do now is to.
Let me know you find the building permit on my house, which I can't find.
I have some concerns about this in the light of, as we haven't adopted our goals yet, but we had a very good discussion at our retreat, and one of them is to create a climate for economic success or implement economic development strategies, and essentially preservation of jobs. You said you hadn't had any complaints except from the home builders, but to protect construction jobs, I don't know if you can separate commercial and residential fees, but it sounds like the commercial mechanical are the ones that are most out of whack. But the climate is so difficult right now, and I understand the push and the pull between the needs of your department, which are also, the needs for safety for the city, but fee increases. I mean, I'm very pleased that you did the phasing here. I'm just wondering if they need to be phased more. How, I guess, I'd like your comments on how, because I want to preserve that job environment as much as possible. These are tough times, and every economist that I've been listening to says that we're not to the downturn yet, that we still may have another year of that. So what I'm thinking is, one half now, one half when we check out what's going on, or anyway, what is the relationship between this and job creation, these fees? What impact do you see?
Well, traditionally, building department fees building permit construction activity fees are about 2 to 3% of the construction cost on a project. So typical building permit fees on a house are between $2,000 or $2,500 on a $250,000 house. Of course, about 125 of that's probably land use. That's what the lots cost, not land use, but land acquisition and that. So traditionally, it's 2 to 3%. The cost of materials, the variation in the cost of construction materials, whether it be lumber or roofing, such as we had with the oil downturn when roofing shot up, and asphalt for site development, and can greatly impact the cost of development far more than fee increases or the fees of building permit fees. And I'm not saying they're not inconsequential. This fee increase proposal that is in front of you is expected to be about $450 per house.
What about commercial? That's the graduated.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
a
tell.
graduated scale. Normally on a particularly in the commercial aspect of things, because of the design-build nature of today's commercial construction, the time frames are far more important than the cost of the fees. Delays in construction, delays in the development process, site development. When you're borrowing tens of millions of dollars, a delay of 30 days in getting plans out or a delay in 30 days in getting approved plans can mean as much as $300,000, far exceeding the cost of the permits.
Yeah, and in a growing community like ours, it's tough for us to have the lowest of the jurisdictions for the commercial mechanical. But and this doesn't have anything to do with remodel. These fees for remodeling as well?
On the building, yes,
On the
they
buildings, both commercial and residential?
Well, the residential fees on the mechanical are
That would be
25%, or 33%, I'm sorry. Normally, the mechanical permit fees on a residential remodel are currently only about $20.
And what would you do if you didn't, if we didn't grant this fee increase?
That's a good question.
Well, that is a good question. Obviously, the contingency that we have built up would be gone. And I'm assuming then that subsequent to the community development director and the city manager, and perhaps you up there, that modifications support would be coming from probably the general fund or layoffs. That would probably be better deferred to the city manager.
One of the things you have to keep in mind with Oregon City, and particularly community development, which includes building, we have never overstaffed those departments. And you still have to maintain some base level of service, and that's basically where we're at. So if you go to a solution of layoffs, particularly at this particular juncture, for those things that do come in, you're going to have a very decreased service level, and we are looking, as Mr. Spurv indicated, at several big projects that may right this ship over time too. It's hard. You don't want to push the panic button right away, because you do have the county projects, both the treatment plant. There's some stuff still going on at Red Soils. We're talking about the Cove, which are going to have some impacts, and again, an increase in fees. We're probably going to end up seeing a need to pay those because we're already in a subsidized role there. Sequoia Landings, some of those other sorts of things, it is going to bring revenue in. We do, as we mentioned at the last time, we have about a 40% fall off in activity. That's going to require probably a larger general fund subsidy. Should indicate
Anyway, even with a fee increase?
Yeah, and so that's where we're going to go to do it. And given where we're sitting with contingency, and tonight I'm going to speak with you a little bit about some budget matters as we talk to you about the budget schedule, is, we have a healthy ending fund balance that we can draw down some. Now, again, that's going to have some impacts out a while. So it's a question really of of we can endure this year. We might can endure next year if that goes. Definitely, there's no debating the fact that we are very far behind and where our fees are at, and those do need to be raised. The question you raised is a very valid one. Is this a good time to raise it? I do agree with Mr. Spurb that time is money, but as you were hearing this evening from the Cove and other folks, if you're looking at $300,000 at this particular point, that is an issue on a major development. If it's $450 a home, that's, you could kind of equate that. Doesn't quite work out that way in building fees of a dwelling unit equivalent. So if you have a business that's 10, that's 450 times 10. So those things, you know, there's a service level, but there is a point where it does begin to have a push on it. So it's a tough call right now in raising any fees. But
Commissioner West.
This certainly, is my mic on? Certainly is a tough call, and I was the person last week that raised the concern over disturbing business, you know, with the higher fees of, you know, builders choosing other places, or, you know, we want to jumpstart the business, not inhibit it by any chance. So when I saw what you're proposing tonight, that we start 2009 and then or February, and then half in August, what if we did half in August and half of the next year, and so we could delay a little more? I really was hoping we were going to go a year out, actually, and delay the whole thing tonight of a year out. I'm still open to all kinds of compromises with my colleagues here, but...
Commissioner Neely.
I understand where we're coming from, but we are on the bottom end of the scale in terms of most of our neighboring jurisdictions, and I guess I don't have that great of a concern. I assume that if in fact if the building's boy, I'm having a bad time today. If there is a continued decline in both the residential and the commercial development, that we're not going to come back again and raise the fees one more time. But it does appear to me that we're really out of sync with the rest of the jurisdictions, and I think we need to keep that one in mind. If we do that, however, if we follow your suggestion, I would suggest we do not do it to the electrical fees because we're at one point or another, if the county feels it's not getting enough for its inspections based on that percentage, they may tell you to go elsewhere to do the inspections, and that we don't want to occur, I would guess. But, yeah, that's my comments.
Commissioner Nocita.
Mr. Spurb, the memo you gave us tonight, what is the total impact to what we would have otherwise received without this amendment, if we do adopt this amendment? How much money are we deferring? How much income and fee income are we deferring or foregoing if we adopt this?
Well, a lot of that depends on the climate, what happens in the next 6 months. Between the sewer treatment plant facility and the Sequoia Landing, that was a lost revenue of about $250,000 to the department. But that's the way it happens. They come in prior to these. I mean, we have some construction activity. It's hard to guess how much is going to come in the next 6 months and how much is going to come in the next year. I've got builders that are coming to me now, particularly in townhouses, that are wanting to start construction activity again. They're feeling they've reached that comfort level, and I've had 12 submitted within the last 3 weeks, and we've had talk with that same developer to submit another 12 or 15 or 12 or 16. So I'd like to be able to give you an answer as to how much of a fiscal impact that's going to have. We're not issuing a lot of permits. We're doing, I think, as of yesterday, with the inauguration. I can't tell you how much people are going to feel comfortable and whether they're going to meet that. We're all in kind of dancing on that eggshells right
Sure.
now. So I think that's a very difficult thing to say. Based upon today's activity, it's not a great deal.
I think where I would like to go is we are so far behind, and we do have some building activity that I would be comfortable going with this 50% effective February 1st. Then my proposal would be that you come back to us and tell us what the climate's like for the other half. Because we may not know what happens within 6 months. It would be nice to know how your department is adapting and adjusting. I know that that's a burden for you, and not to be able to look out to what your revenue will be when we go into budgeting, but that's a proposal I'll put on the table. Commissioner Neely?
I would just have a question. Are there additional things that you would have to do if we delayed it for another 6 months? Other people you would have to contact? Would that impose additional hardships if, in fact...
Delete all of it, you mean?
No, I'm talking about actually bringing this forward at a later point, and whether there are other people he has to talk to or get approvals from or anything of that nature.
Well, through state statute, I'd have to notify the Building Codes Division that what was agreed upon and what would be implemented, and then bring back for another fee increase would then implement that entire process again.
Yeah, my question is, how much time does that take of your,
I have
your
to know-
time, what's that time commit on your part?
Does this allow you enough time if it were a 6-month return?
Well, yeah, I'd have to notify the State Building Codes Division 45 days in advance, and then have the public hearing, and then 30 days. So it would have to begin almost immediately. But that's okay.
Commissioner West?
So you'd have to kind of reopen the public process again, do you? Yeah.
If indeed there may be a possibility, this may be a question for Mr. Sullivan, but to maybe implement the fee increase or approve the fee increase and then work with the implementation rather than say August 1st, look at it in 6 months, and then, or decide at that time, well, do we want to delay it another, implement it now, or that way it could be approved
That would probably shorten the paperwork,
with that
perhaps,
question.
with that question. Commissioner West?
Well, what if we did the half February 1st and the other half in a year from now? Or January 1st, or...
The question is, does that entail more work on his part? I mean, that's the
Well,
question.
yeah, but
I pose.
at least it isn't an open-ended, like, we'll reevaluate. That's my only point there. Of putting a time certain, but...
What you may want to keep in mind, too, just to kind of, and I had this at, what was it, last time this came up, but I haven't looked at it, so I'm going to call this off the top of my head, is in this year's budget, we had anticipated a subsidy to community development of $252,000, which part of that was the rent, which was built into the plan. Given the fall off in revenues, now again, with Sequoia and the treatment plant, I haven't analyzed it since those have come in, but we may have another $200,000 subsidy that we need to ship to community development. That's, as I talk to you later on this evening, these other budget issues, that could have an impact, or will have an impact on what you may want to accomplish next year in budgeting, because it's going to go somewhere, but
Commissioner Nocita?
In listening to the discussion, I think I know now where I'm falling on this issue. Mr. Spurb indicated that Mr. Platt had said that he's all for building departments paying for themselves, but not becoming a draw or a contributor to the general fund. And then there seems to be an opposite risk that the building department will become kind of a ward of the general fund.
Right, like the planning department currently.
And given the concerns expressed in the campaign, et cetera, on things like funding police. I don't want to see the building department underfunded. And I think where I am right now is that I would like to adopt the proposal as originally presented without these modifications and deferrals.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Is there a second to the motion to adopt the original proposal?
I second.
Moved by Commissioner Nocita, seconded by Commissioner Neely. Is there further discussion or public comment? Yes, please come forward.
Excuse me, Paul Edgar, Oregon City Land Use Chair of the Kenema Neighborhood Association. I agree with that, with the recommendation. I think it's very prudent on the part of the city and the financial well-being of the long-term aspects of the city and the budget that we go along with this proposal just as being presented.
Further comment? All right, Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner Neely.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Nocita.
Aye.
Mayor Norris.
Aye, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. We have 7A, that is the personal services agreement for the Warner Milne Road, Molalla Avenue intersection realignment and utility replacements, and the Beaver Creek Road, Molalla Avenue intersection improvements for the final design services, Wallace Engineering. And for that, I'll call Nancy Krashauer, City Engineer and Public Works Director.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We have gone through preliminary engineering for 2 intersection projects, which are actually quite near City Hall. One is over here at Beaver Creek and Molalla, and one is at Warner Milne and Molalla. The transportation system plan calls for realigning the intersection here at Warner Milne and Molalla with the road on the other side, and which I think is called the Warner Milne extension. That particular realignment project ties in well with a recommendation in our sewer master plan to upsize the sewer line between just about a few hundred feet west of City Hall all the way to close to Walgreens. And then we also have a troublesome water line that goes within that same section, but it also extends all the way down to Beaver Creek Road. And this is puts together kind of a great complementary project where you can repair utilities. The pavement on Warner Milne is poor, and we can also take care of our a mobility project in our TSP with the realignment. So this has been in our budget. It's been in our 5-year plan now for, I think, 2 or 3 years, getting ready to do this project. And we contracted with Wallace Engineering, who is a pre-qualified consulting engineering firm, as you approved a list of 3 a couple years ago. They completed the preliminary engineering, so now they have a very good idea of what the detailed work scope needs to be to complete the final design and contract documents for that project. The Clackamas County Master Plan, when they did their traffic impact study, they identified the need to provide a exclusive right turn lane going east on Beaver Creek Road at Molalla, so that you don't all get lined up to go through on Beaver Creek Road. You can actually get the right turns out of the way. And we saw some potential economy of scale of doing these projects at the same time. And yet we've also want to make sure that there are so many uncertainties in construction costs right now. We've set up this project so that that project could be added or not added to the actual contract documents, the final contract that you would award. And while they're both important, the one here at Warner Milne is a higher priority, but the other one is important, and it also takes care of some drainage problems at that intersection. So given their proximity, we might save some contractor costs in mobilization and a number of other things. So we've combined them for this proposal. And the other thing that we've been preparing for with these two projects is potentially being able to make an application for the economic stimulus package that we hope to see coming out of Washington, D.C. And not to say we'll get the money through application, but we are getting our ducks in a row for that. And if nothing else, given the fact that this has been in our work plan, it certainly is a good opportunity for the City of Oregon City to get things rolling and get some more capital projects activated. And that is about all the information I think I wanted to give you. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? Commissioner Nocita?
I got a newbie commissioner question. When a firm is pre-qualified, do we still have to go through competitive bidding to contract with that firm?
It really depends on the project. What we've done in in most cases with these pre-qualified firms, we ask them to provide us proposals to give us a fee estimate, because they're already qualified. And if it just comes down to money, then you could ask for a proposal and compare their fee estimates. With consulting engineers, the public contracting rules say they really need to be selected based on qualifications and not fee. So we have to be very careful about doing that. In this case, Wallace Engineering just completed the Beaver Creek Road improvements project for us, and they also studied the storm drainage up here as part of that project. So they're very familiar with this area. They have shown extreme competence in doing a couple of other utility projects that we've had them do in the last couple of years. So we felt they would be the best qualified of the three firms that we have shortlisted to do this project.
Commissioner Smith?
This is more because I'm such a visual person. I know both intersections very well, but I'm trying to visualize how the right turn lane works, because it goes from the street sidewalk to like a fence. So can you tell me how?
We need to acquire right-of-way.
Oh, okay. That's what I was wondering.
And we would be coming back to you for potential condemnation proceedings if we felt like we weren't going to be able to acquire the right-of-way through negotiation.
Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Neely?
On the Beaver Creek Malala intersection, area you were talking about drainage issues, could you be more specific?
That intersection just doesn't drain very well. Part of it is because of the pavement conditions, but we're also going to survey it and see if there's anything we can do other than correcting some of the pavement to reestablish a crown and get it to drain faster. I'm sure if you've driven through it in a storm, you probably noticed that there's quite a bit of splashing.
Okay. This is a contract for a not to exceed $244,574, paid for through our utility funds, essentially. Are there other questions about this? Then may I have a motion for adoption, please?
I move approval of the PSA agreement, or I authorize the city manager to execute the PSA agreement with Wallace Engineering to provide final design engineering services for the Warner Milne Road, Malala Avenue intersection realignment and utility replacements in the Beaver Creek Road, Malala intersection improvement projects.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner West, seconded by Commissioner Nocita. Is there further comment or discussion? Seeing none, Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Mayor Norris?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Next, we have two vacations. The first, on the same project. The first one is Resolution 9-3 to vacate the non-vehicular access strips that front lots 143 through 179 of the Sequoia Landing subdivision. Nancy, this is one of yours.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. This is what we would call a plat cleanup. The developer of the Sequoia Landing subdivision has changed the arrangement of the lots, and they used to have an alley and this non-vehicular access requirement basically didn't allow driveways along their frontages. You could park in front, but you wouldn't have driveways in the front because they were going to pull in from the back through the alleyway. And with the real redesign or reconfiguration of these lots, now they're going to have access from the front, and so we need to remove this non-vehicular access strip easement because we want to allow driveways.
Commissioner West?
I
Commissioner Nocita?
actually have some question and discussion about this.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
And we don't have any graphics here, and again, I realize that I'm coming in to Act 3 on this play because all of the land use approvals were probably granted quite some time ago. But am I correct that these were originally, this subdivision seems to have been designed with extremely small lots? And are we cramming in individual units to extremely small lots and having snout house garages on this street? And it sounds like the Center Island part of the subdivision that was going to be at least a little oasis of non-snout houses that is now going to be consistent snout houses throughout the neighborhood. And I'd like to know what's going on and how that relates to what you're asking for. Again, this is probably a Dan question more than a Nancy question.
Well, I can do my best. The one thing I do know is that we revised our code, which reduced the potential for snout houses.
I knew it. I'd accept that term also.
Exactly. Stop calling it snot nose. Anyway, so the code has been changed so that the potential for a long snout is less than it previously was. This is, I believe, it's an R2 area, and where we're trying to get in some higher densities. And I really can't speak to the architectural design of the building themselves, so Commissioner, I apologize. This was all done at the community development level, and I'm doing the public works part of it, which is the non-vehicular access easement.
Is this the actual plat? Because I thought there was quite a bit more parkland and a rec hall and 2 swimming pools on it.
Well, I think I think actually
I'm on the right one.
If you're on page 8 of the packet,
Doesn't look like it.
there's a big section that is the apartment complex.
Mm-hmm.
Just where alley to be removed is the text is, and that is a large area where there are the apartment buildings, and that's where you'll see the clubhouse and the swimming pools.
Park area.
I'm not sure how large the park area is, but I do know that those apartment-wide or development-wide amenities are located with the apartment area.
Yeah, I do want to wait for Dan to come back because I'm wondering if the change rises to the level that would have to go through a public hearing and process again. I don't know. How did the amendment take place to the point where we're being asked to do this on a public works basis?
The amendment to the design.
I don't know about the plat amendment. Do you know anything about that?
We'll just have to wait for the answer to that.
Do you
You
wanna-
have other questions we could answer or ask on the meantime?
Maybe I could introduce the other one, and they're
Sure.
sort of the same.
Why don't we just do that, if that's okay with you? All right, let's, I will introduce, we'll put that one on hold, introduce, he'll be here in a minute, okay. We're going to move on to the next one so we can start on that and not waste our time this evening. That will be Resolution 9-04, and here's Dan, so, you want to come to the mic? You may wish to go to your book so you can see what we're talking about. All right, we'll stay on the design of that one.
Do you want me to introduce the second one so he can hear what the conversation is?
Oh,
Would
sure,
that
go
be
ahead.
helpful?
Sure.
Thank you. No. So the second resolution is regarding vacation of public access easements and storm drainage easements that are located where the alley used to be or would have been. And naturally, because now we're not going to have an alley back there, we don't need public easements and we don't need stormwater easements. The stormwater improvements that are constructed, if they are constructed back there, would be maintained privately. So the question, Dan, is when this plat for Sequoia Landing was
modified or changed. They changed the design. The question was, there used to be an alley back here, and that was going to allow for the driveways to come in from the back and just have on-street parking and no driveways. And now, if this has been redesigned to eliminate the alley and have the resident or the structures fronting the streets and their driveways, does this cause a snout house outcome? Is that, did I paraphrase
I think there's
that
an
right?
additional question, too, if you jump
Well,
in.
It's a just question because I wasn't on the commission prior to this month. How was this entire Sequoia Landing plat developed, considered approved? Are all of these tiny little lots having individual units on them? Are they like attached condo units?
Yeah, there's a lot of groupings of units, usually about 4. So they're attached, but each unit actually owns in fee simple the lot, even though the buildings are attached. So there seems to be much more of a market for that type of unit as opposed to a condominium arrangement where you just own the structure or you're part of the building.
Sure. And was the plan, why did that little island in the middle, why did that have an access alleyway and rear vehicular access, and all of the other little lots in the entire subdivision, some of which seem that they could also lend themselves to that rear alleyway and rear vehicular access? Why was it just laid out that way in that center island? And are all of these other lots, I don't want to use Nancy's term, are they also snout houses? Are all of these snout houses,
You did, yes, you did.
snout condos? And do I'm trying to get a sense of whether our code creates this, and is there something we can do about our code if it does create attached snout houses?
We eliminated snouts back in 2004 with our code. So basically, if you have, it's sort of a menu option. So depending on how wide your front of your building is, it dictates how wide your garage can be. And it says in no situation can the garage be located in front. That's the snout. So we've taken care of that. And then there are also, you can earn extra points by things like adding windows to the garage and then adding trim around your windows and roof lines. And so there's a whole different set of menus that you can go through to
Okay. So why was this alley created in the first place on that center island?
I really don't know. I'd have to ask the planner who had the original conversation with the developer several years ago.
And would the change be significant enough that would have to go in like an amendment process that would involve public process and public hearing?
Well, because it didn't change the number of lots and the configuration of the lots, it wasn't necessary.
So it was done by staff, then, those changes. Commissioner Neely?
I'll just pose a question. You mentioned there you're going to have attached housing here, and you were mentioning groupings of 4. Are these attachments going to be back-to-back as well as side-to-side?
No, they're just side-to-side.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Commissioner Smith?
This is right next to the high school, so I know it pretty well. I drove through there just to look, and the road that's down at the bottom of the map is obviously has garages that enter from the street because the backing of it is the soccer fields or whatever. There's a strip in the development that is already built where the garages are in the back in an alley, and which I think was the proposal for this section we're talking about. In look and design and the way the neighborhood feels, the ones that are already built with the garages to the back is much nicer, beautiful actually. the way that they look in design, and as opposed to the ones that are built already along the soccer field, which just have a whole different neighborhood feel. So the design issue is a real huge concern for me with that, and I don't know that we really have any say on that, but that is a concern. The other concern is with the alleyway in the center, you're taking extra traffic and the possibility of parking on the street away more, because they're all going to be going into that center alley to their garages rather than in the front. So it's going to take some traffic off the street. And it's also another emergency access. So I have several concerns about that.
This is difficult to do without the developer being able to talk to.
Yeah.
Is there any?
And I think this is one also where he's got some sort of funding package.
Yeah, is that a fast track?
Has probably a lot of strings attached to it.
It's an FHA.
Yeah, and so I do believe there still are alleys on the groups of lots on the south edge along Glen Oak Road, Commissioner Nacita.
Okay.
Because I doubt if we wanted that many driveways on Glen Oak Road.
Yeah,
And
that's
there
what I was
very
wondering.
well could be the same situation on the top horizontal rows of lots. So it could be that this is the only one that's changing, and
I share Commissioner Smith's concern, and I would like to see if we can find a way. I would like to continue this, and I'd like to, in the intervening time, just get a sense of what the situation is and whether we have any intervention power or incentive power to encourage the developer to design the units that still have to be built in the manner in which Commissioner Smith was referring to, where the design is a neighborhood enhancement and not a neighborhood detriment.
Does anyone know if there's an ability to?
There isn't, actually.
There is not?
No, there is not. They've already submitted their building permits for
Plans, okay.
the rest of the units. So
it has to be decided this evening?
Yeah, they meet the planning standards that were approved, they meet the building code, so it's not, at this point, we can't really do anything.
Did you have something to say?
No, I'm just going to say the same thing.
Okay. Commissioner West.
Do you know, so what is the motivation, or what is the reason that they wanted to change this? So house will be, both houses on both sides will be more in the center, and it'll have a longer driveway. Isn't that what's going to happen here?
Yes, they'll be fronted off of, Scarlet and
So they'll have longer driveways. So is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure, actually,
The houses will be set back farther, right? I mean, they're going
I
to,
don't know.
or are they going to all have backyards?
Well, we don't
I'm
know.
not sure they'll do that.
We don't
I guess
know.
I'd have to ask.
what I could imagine, I sometimes know the answer, these might be shared driveways that they'll have a short driveway that accesses off of the roads, and they'll probably be shared, because we're very much encouraging shared driveways rather than having lots and lots of driveways. So, but I do think that they will probably have driveways that are on Tannery and Scarlet Oak, and they won't have driveways in the back. But as I said before, much of the rest of the development, except for the row of houses or houses on along the soccer field, the rest of the development will still retain the alley design, as far as I know.
Then why was this even necessary in the center island? If people are going to be, you're saying along Glen Oak Road, all of those little lots will be accessing their units from the rear.
From the alley
along
the back.
alleys that are not actually shown on this plat.
Right.
Okay. Well, the question that comes to my mind is, if they're able to do it on those, then why can't they do it on the center island, necessitating a change?
And to be honest with you, I can't answer that question. I wasn't involved in that process.
Okay.
So I apologize.
So, Commissioner Neely? Actually, I think Commissioner West was first.
No, go ahead.
I asked it.
Oh, you did? Oh, sorry. Commissioner Neely, then.
I'm not sure what the implications are if, in fact, we don't approve these easements. That is, are we in a position that we had one thing approved, and if these things don't get approved, then we can be taken to court or something of that nature.
I think the release of the easements is a discretionary matter for you. I mean, they took the risk in coming in and asking for the modification, and they had the modification with the easement on top of it. They could have asked for it concurrently. They're asking for it sequentially. You don't have to do it.
Okay, my suggestion is we do what Commissioner Nocita has suggested. We postpone this, we give the developer a chance to come and talk about it to us.
And, yeah.
Or at least give the planning staff knowledge of our, of the answers to the questions and concerns that we had. It just seems like we have too much missing information to make a really informed
enough to
decision
make a
this evening.
decision.
So even though it sounds as if
Whatever
they're...
you wish, and we'll
it's
be happy
just
to
2
bring in
weeks, so-
the staff that can answer your questions, and hopefully we can get the developer in as well.
So do we need a motion for a continuance?
We do for, can we do it together for both of them? Okay, may I have a motion then for continuance?
I so move.
Second, please?
Second.
Moved by
That's the
Commissioner...
next meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be February 4th.
Hopefully, as soon as possible.
Moved by Commissioner Nocita, seconded by Commissioner Smith to move items 7C and 7D to the date certain of February 4th. Further comment? Thank you. Nancy, to vote, please.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Mayor Norris?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. So we'll see that again. Next, we have item 7E, the addendum to the Oregon City 2008 waterline replacements contract with Civil Works Northwest, Inc. Nancy, another one of yours.
Thank you very much. This is a project that we've been doing down in one of our water line replacements is down in the Kanema area on 3rd Avenue, and we had to do some culvert work. We replaced the water line, and in so doing, we found that the sanitary sewer pipe in the vicinity had some bends in it that made it very difficult to clean and to TV, to monitor for operations and maintenance. And then there were also corrosion within the line. And we thought, well, gosh, before we finalize that project, we have a contractor out there. Why don't we see if he would give us an estimate on what it would cost to replace that section of sewer line? And he submitted a bid of $65,120, and we are asking you to approve that amendment or addendum to the existing contract we have with Civil Works Northwest to allow the sanitary sewer pipe work to be done.
Great. My question was, the budget impact, is the budget impact the 65,120?
Yes.
Okay. thank
Yes,
you.
and that would be on the sewer fund. The rest of the project is coming out of the water fund.
Of the water fund?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
On the back where the budget is, it says number 10, abandon and fill existing sanitary, remove MHB. What's that referring to, the remove?
That would be the old sanitary sewer pipe. We want to, by abandoning it, we're going to fill it. And there's also a manhole we'll be taking out.
So you're not actually, you're filling the old pipe?
Yes.
Not- Is there a reason for that?
It's the most cost-effective,
Okay.
efficient way to abandon a pipe in place.
Okay.
You don't
So
want to
that's-
just abandon it without filling it, because then
That's
you
a
can have
safety issue.
crushing and sinkholes
Well, no,
later.
I understand that point. I'm wondering why we don't remove it, but that's
Take it out.
cost.
It's costly.
Okay.
This is a very effective way to
And
abandon pipes
I mean,
in
I
place.
just, the only reason I bring it up is because I can assume that at some point you have pipes all over the city that you have to do, that you have, this grid work that is not, well, thank you, Doug.
Sometimes the filled pipes are better than the soil conditions.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Well, my comment is I think we've run into this kind of situation all over the city.
Yeah.
Right, no, I'm sure.
Including probably pipes that
It
were
was
never
just the
filled.
thought
that
in
don't
my
work.
head.
Right, unfortunately, that's true.
It's fun for the archaeologists of the future.
Right.
Okay, may I have a motion on this one, please? Commissioner
Yeah, I
West.
move-
Doug, or what? Okay. I move approval to authorize the city manager to execute the addendum to the Oregon City 2008 water line replacements contract with Civil Works Northwest.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner West, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Is there further comments? Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner Neely?
Aye.
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Nocita?
Aye.
Mayor Norris?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a personal services agreement with our municipal elevator, for our municipal elevator. Nancy?
Well, every 3 years, we go out to bid to enter into a personal service agreement for operating our elevator. And this time, we did advertise as required by the public contracting law. We got one submittal, which is the same company that's been doing it for many, many years. And quite honestly, that's not a concern to me because we've had very I got a paper cut. So, could you grab a tissue, please? Thank you. Sorry. They have provided very good service throughout the years, and we see their cost increase to be reasonable, appropriate for cost of living increases, and so we would ask that you approve this new contract with Five Star International to continue the service of operating the elevator.
I have a question, Nancy. I was going to go to the budget, but I didn't. What is the increase?
The increase is, I think it's about $12,000 a year, $10,000 a year, and I should have done the same, Mayor Norris. What I understand normally happens is they increase it about 3 to 5% per year, and that is what I would assume is for this case as well.
Okay, Commissioner West?
David, you don't happen to have the elevator line item, do you, in your package over there?
While David looks.
I was going to say,
Go ahead.
our unique vertical street does not have a lot of people that, or contractors that provide unique services to them, it sounds like, with the one bid, but
The annual for...
The increase over,
you have what?
74,930.
That's,
That's technical services, I assume that's the
Yes.
contract.
right, so there you see, that was based on an
It's
old
about
3-year contract, so here we're entering into a new 3-year contract.
Budget base 6243 a month, 6244 a month, is that what we're paying?
Yeah,
That's more than-
that's correct.
Okay.
Well, and isn't this something that Sandy has been there? She's been there longer than I've been here, 1985. I know it seems like it's forever since I've been here, and it has been. So, that's kind of fun. Anybody that uses the elevator on a regular basis knows it.
Absolutely. Further? Yeah, Commissioner Smith?
Just 2 comments. I glad you brought up Oregon City's vertical street, because when I read this, I really enjoyed seeing 1/3 of the budget is from the street fund, because it is Oregon City's vertical street. So it's a great piece of history embedded in this from when it was built. It's really cool. Second of all, during this storm, I rode the elevator much more than I normally do, and going downtown to get something to drink or coffee or whatever, or a sandwich or a coffee.
It's not
I
true.
saw Doug there. Doug was there. Anyway, I ride the elevator quite more than probably a lot of people I know, but I did quite a lot more even then during the storm, and so I enjoy talking with the elevator operators and quizzing them on Oregon City history stuff, and it's always a great experience, and the elevator looks so great right now, and I just encourage citizens that haven't seen it to go and check it out. It's a really great piece of art for the city, and it's really great. So, thank you.
I agree, and the elevator operators are ambassadors for the city. They really do know a lot, and they're extremely friendly. I get feedback from visitors all the time about those city employees. Commissioner Neely.
Well, I'm going to make a nice comment about the elevator too in a minute, but if the 75,000 approximately that we have in the budget, you said that was based on a 3-year contract, is that right? This 91,000 is substantially more than 5% over 3 years. 5% compounded over 3 years. So I guess I would feel more comfortable with actually seeing what the overall increase is.
I would be happy to provide a better arithmetic presentation to you on last 3-year contract and what this
be good.
contract means in terms of annual increases, if you would like that.
I would.
I would as well. That's a
That's
piece
not a
of
problem.
information that I missed.
If I suggest page 15, and then I'll make my nice comments. What they plot there, I think, are two things. One is an average over several years. That's the light-colored line. And then the year-to-date, I presume, is the solid-colored line. What I wanted to say was, up until about 5 or 6 years ago, they plotted every, and you had so many lines you got confused, but they plotted every year's thing. I would say for 10 or 15 years straight, the use of the elevator had gone down. And what this is saying, there's been a dramatic increase in the use of the elevator over a 5 or 6 year period. And one time or another, I would like to see perhaps end-of-year riderships over maybe a 20-year stretch, so we can kind of appreciate how. I mean, obviously, if the use has gone up dramatically in the last 5 years, there's a reason for it, whether it's public transportation location or whether it's other things that are attracting people from the uptown area down below or the other way around. But it is, I think we'd find out there's a real dramatic change that's occurred, and I'd like to see that.
And I think it's just astounding,
that.
so I want to say it over and over again, is that if you don't know how many people ride the elevator, it's nearly 130,000 people rides. Some of those are probably duplicates, but 130,000 a year. It is tremendously well used, so it's great.
It's not necessarily 130, I mean, it might be one person going up
Right,
and down.
yeah, rides. Those are called rides. Those are called rides, yes, exactly. But that's a lot of usage. Okay, may I have a motion on, let's see, are we holding this one over? Okay, that's possible to do. All right, thank you very much. So we'll consider that one with the additional information that we've asked for, too. Next, we have the minutes of December 17th. May I have a motion for adoption of those minutes, please?
Move approval.
All second?
Moved by Commissioner West, seconded by Commissioner Neely. On the minutes, Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Abstain?
Commissioner Nasita,
Abstain.
Mayor Norris.
Aye, motion passes 3-0 with 2 abstentions because they weren't present at the meeting. Now, the consent agenda, may I have a motion for adoption
You
of those
might
two
have been
items,
present at the
please?
meeting, but.
I think I was at the meeting.
Yeah, that's right. They weren't sitting in official seats. Okay. For the consent agenda, may I have a motion for approval, please?
Okay, move approval. Move approval. So moved.
Second?
Moved by Commissioner West, seconded by Commissioner Neely on the consent agenda. Nancy, the vote, please.
Commissioner Neely,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Nasita,
Aye.
Mayor Norris.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Next, we have communications. First, our city manager, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, just a couple of items, but one is going to take some time. But let me mention, we are looking at the City Hall floor plans, and we'll be meeting tomorrow with our consultant, or the architects looking at that, and we are working very hard to squeeze the commission chambers into that facility, and there may be a way we can do that, particularly with leaving community development here. Helps. And our folks have gotten pretty creative, so we'll take a look at that, and I'll let you know how that comes out. Now, I'm going to hand reluctantly this memo to you. Don't want anybody to panic yet, because there's still a lot of work to be done here, but we are moving into one of the major efforts we do in the year, and that is putting the budget together, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done because there's 2 balancing pieces that have to come to that. There is the fire annexation plan, and then there's also trying to come to grips with the goals, which we're still working on, and what pieces of those, if any, we can incorporate in this budget. And I want to kind of give you what we're looking at right now. And again, you have to keep in mind we haven't gotten through all of the goals things, and I'll give you some ideas of what that's kind of looking like right now as I've kind of worked through a draft with some ballpark figures of what may be there. In keeping with the plan, the parameters that I'm asking staff to begin to develop their budget in is looking at personnel services at no more than 6%. And as you recall, you got 3 different groups, and as those contracts have come in or costs come in, as last year the ASME group was actually over 6%, it's about 6.37. Police was 5 point something, I can't remember that figure, and then your management and classified folks were 3.5%, and this year that's looking like 3.3%. So, that's kind of what helps balance that grouping. Materials and services at 3%, capital outlay at 2%, and other at 3%. And again, those are kind of the parameters we established in the fire annexation program. Additionally, in the plan, the called for a subsidy to community development, that's looking like that's going to be above and beyond what we had budgeted, so that's the first thing that begins to break down. And that's something, too, that you're going to really have to think about as we look at land use initiatives or actions that you take, because that adds to that, and it's the hardest part of the budget to control. There's one parks maintenance worker that was scheduled to be added in 09-10. The library subsidy at $190,000. That's the 184 plus 3%, and I have recommended to you place that into some type of building reserve. You don't have to do that. You can spend it on the library operations, but again, that's part of that. How do we build a library issue? Additionally, I think there's a number of issues we need to look at in regards to maintenance. And those numbers just keep coming in. I won't utter the first thing that came to my mind. I'll just go back to my notes here. We're looking, I think we're going to need to look at adding half a police officer. Right now, we share the cost of the school resource officer with the school, and given the budget cuts the school's facing, I anticipate they're going to be cutting that funding. I think we need to pick that position up. We have 2 office assistants out front. We have a position and a half, and at the present time we have a vacancy in the half-time position, and I would like to actually get your permission to recruit that as a full-time position. At this time, I'd like to add that position full-time so I could reassign the other position to the city recorder's office, which would help that. That workload is getting to the point now that, it's getting to be somewhat daunting, and again, that's a maintenance of services issue, and I think you're seeing some of that as we, and one of the things that's really added to that here recently, even though we'll work through that part, is just the aftermath of the storms has generated a lot of work in that office, particularly in the risk management side of that as well. I would also ask your permission to budget 5 senior officer, patrol officer positions. Basically, we do that right now, so this is really probably a wash. It may involve a little bit extra money, but basically when you don't have a sergeant on duty for whatever purpose, you have a patrol officer that's working out of class up, and so we're paying those dollars now. I think it would be an easier process. It'd probably even be some savings in payroll if we just created that senior officer position, which is actually established in the police contract. Would be a promotional thing for those individuals. It's about $3,000 per officer, about $15,000, but we're paying that right now. So for the most part, at the end of when the dust clears, I don't think we're talking about a lot of money. That could actually be over, be under in a given year. It really depends on how much out of class work we have. And then the staff support to the CIC, which is built into a position we already have. The budget also proposes the following. You have the utility fee increases, and those are across those funds mentioned: water, sewer, storm drain, and pavement maintenance. There is a system development charge rate indexed increases. Depending on your decision with transportation system development charge methodology, you'll see that reflected in the budget. Maybe where it's at, or there may be an increase depending on what your decisions on that. The building fee increases, those will be built in as you approve this evening. We will create a new fund for library operations and the money coming in from the district, so that won't be intermingled in the general fund, and we can show folks where those dollars go. I anticipate that we'll need to look at the downtown parking fund to address the policy recommendations of that study as they come forward, but we're still working through that. And again, part of that is how we budget those and what those are, but I think you'll see at least whatever we can do within the resources we have in that fund. And then we need to wrestle with the goals that you're looking at and how we incorporate those. And I've just kind of recently gone through the first draft of those and still trying to sort through all the notes and all. Looks like about $500,000 of new cost is being proposed. You're going to have to debate is it a new program, is it an extension, plus some one-time type costs, which could be, that I'm having a harder time because it really depends on the years that comes in. So we'll have to sort through those, and I'll show you some of those ballpark figures.
We'll see those at our next work session.
You're right. Yeah. Try to have that at the next work session. Depends. I mean, we need to for the budget.
Yeah.
It's right now. There's just a lot on the plate. It's a question of what we can do with priorities. Now, having said that, you entered this year. Well, actually, when we closed out the year, we had a contingency of $2.8 million, and out of that, at the present time, we have asked for $275,000, or the cost of the roof at the swimming pool is going to be $275,000 plus. We probably will have to replace the HVAC units. We'll address that as we go through. So that could run up in the neighborhood of about $400,000. Looks like the winter storm is going to cost $800,000. $80,000. Excuse me.
Last week it was 80. I don't think we had that much.
That's inflation. That's inflation for you.
Inflation has been quite dramatic this last week. Wish we could invest it and get that kind of return. We're looking at trying to bring on the library director before the end of the year. That's $40,000, or roughly we're guessing at $40,000. We have a police vehicle we need to purchase. That's probably $40,000. You have the pool painting costs, was roughly $35,000. And then those couple of positions that I mentioned to you would probably add about $30,000. But some of that's a wash, so I don't have a good cost figure on that for you right now.
Those last things, Larry, are those all this fiscal year?
Yeah, these are all this year.
Current.
And then, again, as I mentioned, there's a good chance, depending on what happens with building, is you may be looking at another $200,000 of subsidy that we had not anticipated. And depending, again, in the police department, we have some, the cost of the chief leaving that we're going to have to cover in that too. So somewhere between, you're looking at, could look as high as total there of about $800,000, which is going to have an impact on what you're able to do with what we're talking about in that budget. At least if we're going to carry this plan past the 5 years. Now, there's some things, too, as you recall with your fire annexation plan, that we had a number of set of assumptions, and we don't know how those are going to come in yet. It looks like the community development side of that's already going to exceed what we had anticipated, which was, I thought I'd put enough in there for buffer, but it looks like we're going to go over that, and part of that's just a fall off in activity. I don't know what the AV growth is going to be yet. Again, the plan anticipated 5.5. We've been running at 6.25, so we may come out okay there. I think the 6%, the 3%, the 2%, those things, I think we can work within that. So,
going so fast, what was AV?
Assessed value. Yeah, I'm looking for gummy worms because there's not much else going on.
Yeah, dream on. Dream on.
So, with all that said in mind, what we would like your approval on is a couple of things. We'd like to hold our budget committees on April the 20th, the 21st, and the 28th, at least for starting.
Those have already been sent out. Nancy sent those out at the beginning of the year.
Yep. I'm just checking.
Oh, yeah.
We're just trying to round everybody up. Yeah. And then, again, if I could have your permission on those senior patrol officers and that halftime clerical position.
Just to make certain that nobody thinks we're hiring 5 new officers.
No.
What you're doing
Yes.
is you're changing basically their
Classification
classification.
Classification
Yes.
change, right.
Yeah, is there any objection to that? or questions of the manager? I guess you have permission to forge ahead.
And with that, I'll shut up and sit down. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I wish I'd had that information before I told the North Clackamas Chamber at the State of the Cities today that everything was hunky-dory in Oregon City.
Well, we're
I didn't exactly say
we're
that,
managing
but-
well. It's just,
Yeah.
these are dynamic times, and budgets are very fluid documents that you just got to have to keep messing with.
And that's exactly what I said, that, they wanted to know what this was the State of the Cities, so the 5 cities in North Clackamas County, we just got added last year, so Damascus, Happy Valley, Milwaukee, Gladstone, and Oregon City were the 5. Our State of the City is 40 minutes long. We got 3 minutes to tell all the great things that are happening in Oregon City. So, but one of the questions was, what are the challenges and what are the advantages of living in your community? And I said, well, Oregon City, everything in Oregon City has been a challenge. So, I talked about the fact that our bond rating had increased and that and the projects that we have online and the changes that have been made to the community, and that we really strategically have been planning for a downturn like this, though we certainly are affected like everyone else through permits and fees. But I wish I'd had this information as well. So don't forget, February 10th is ours, and so make our State of the City.
And I'll write all this up in a memo as soon
Great.
as I find some free time to. I have a couple other memos I need to write based on your previous meeting this evening as well. So.
Okay, good. Well, we'll look forward to talking more at the work session on all of that. Okay, next is, I have some appointments to make. One is the reappointment of Ellen Dunn to the Planning Commission for the term January 1st, 2009 to December 31st, 2012. Those are 4-year terms just like ours. Second is an appointment to the Historic Review Board of Vicki Yates. That would be the nominee from the Chamber of Commerce. And John McLaughlin to fill the at-large position for the term January 1 to December 31st, 2011.
Is that like
This
when
would be
somebody writes in
this
Mickey
would be-
Mouse for president?
Yeah,
Is
right.
that a real name?
This would be a different John McLaughlin than the one that appears on the picture with the wild hair. And then the third appointment.
Rocky, this team brings them back all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe we better go check this guy out. No, he's actually qualified, and he served in the County Planning Commission.
Is he in fact a descendant?
I think I talked with him about that once. I don't believe he is.
No.
No, it's Jon. Wait, the last name is. Yeah, the last name is.
Madam
And-
Mayor, you're not digging up appointments, are you?
Yeah.
Well, we have to go a long ways to find those volunteers. Okay, and then the last appointment is Ted Shoemaker to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. That's a reappointment also that began January 1 and will continue to December 31st, 2011. So those are the 3 appointments. Are there Commissioner communications? Commissioner West.
Well, we finished our first meeting with our new commissioners, and I just want to welcome. I hope you feel good about your first meeting. It's pretty neat. Got off to a good start. So I just wanted to say welcome. What I'd really like to talk about is a little bit of what's been going on in Main Street. And Monday, we had a cleanup event downtown Oregon City where we all swept and power washed streets and picked up a lot of cigarette butts. And what was so amazing about this event is that it was put together in under 2 weeks, and it was a very cold morning Monday, and we had about 45 people come. And how this happened was we had an enthusiastic board member, Claire Met, saw an article from President Obama that he was looking for a call to volunteerism for that day and in honor of Martin Luther King Day. And so she posted it also on his national website. And so out of this 45 people, we had 15 people that didn't even live in Oregon City that came and helped. And
Amazing.
I really wasn't there, but I heard the atmosphere and the spirit was just so upbeat and positive, and hopefully it's just one more sign of hope.
I drove by, and there were people on every street corner. It looked really good.
And then I also wanted to say that Main Street this coming Monday, we're in the process of hiring or interviewing candidates for our Main Street manager. So maybe the next meeting we'll be able to tell you who that is. And a lot of time people say, how do I know about Main Street? So because we're such a new organization, we don't have our own website up yet. So how you find us is on the city's website. It's on the bottom right corner, and it's under, where did I write it? Under the resources. So if you want to know any of our meeting times and breakout times, or even our agendas, they will be posted there. And we're not quite at where meeting times are like the first Monday of every month on a regular basis yet. We're working towards it. We're still a pretty new group. And the last thing I wanted to tell or ask my colleagues is the National Main Street Conference is being held in Chicago on March 1st and 4th through 4th this year, and I would really like to attend. And I'll just share for the community and for you all of why I think it's so important. As we've been talking all evening, and probably will talk all year about the economic downturn we're in. Main Street and groups like Main Street and the Chamber and networking groups have become more important than ever to pull together as a community to support our local businesses and to help them to do what they need to stay profitable. I'm also really crazy about Main Street because I see it as this community's bridge to historic preservation. Another reason that I think it would be beneficial that I go to this meeting is that the conference has a lot of seminars on working with urban renewal, and since our downtown Main Street is in an urban renewal district, I think that would be, all the education in that area would be beneficial. And the other thing is Main Street needs a cheerleader. I guess I always wanted to be a cheerleader. I didn't know I was going to play out as a community advocate, but I think it's important that if you don't have your elected officials and someone on your group going and conveying that message with your other officials of how and what's happening in that program, that it could easily get pushed to the wayside. So I really would like to go if I could have all your approval. So,
Is anyone that has concerns about Daphne going to this?
oh, and I did get a scholarship from the
that's
National for the tuition, National Main Street program. It doesn't pay the whole thing, though.
That's great. Any objections?
No objections. I do have a question, though. Will anybody else be going for the Main Street program?
Yes, we have quite a big group.
Okay.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's important. I agree.
Yeah. Well, there's about 4 of us. Dawn Slack, I think Rob Crocker. I think Amber's going. We'll see if the Chamber can help her out. And
It's always good for a couple of people to hear the same information. I think I agree.
I don't have an objection. I do also have a question, and this is another newbie commissioner question. I chatted with Commissioner West on the phone about the commissioner expense system and whether there is a threshold at which there's approval needed. And I'm wondering if that's the case or whether, and if that is the case, what is the level?
It is anything that's not, that we haven't, that isn't part of our work, like this. That's extraordinary. It's outside the realm of our everyday work that would be expected. So,
Right.
for instance, when you go to impact, or to urban and rural reserves, you're expected to go as part of your job. So we expect you to be there. That's a reimbursement expense, but this is outside that. When I went to National Council of Mayors, I asked for permission from my colleagues to go.
Okay. So on something like that, is it a formal vote necessary
No.
under the rules? It's just a consensus?
Just approval
Okay.
from if you wish to have a vote, we could, but it's just
No,
approval
I'm just
from the college.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out
No,
what
that's all.
what the system is.
Yeah.
well, thank you. I'm looking forward to going.
I have a request also.
And I'll bring back a very detailed report.
Oh, goody.
Yeah.
Good project.
Thank you,
Now,
Good projects for
just
implementation.
to make sure, this allocation comes out of the city commission's budget if we make this kind of decision at the commission level?
Yes.
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 Again, you budget an amount for training, and the other caveat there would be when you exceed that, or if the request exceeds it, is you'd either have to figure out where else you're going to bring it from, whatever. You do have sufficient monies in there for this right now.
Yeah, I have a request also. As you know, I sit on JPAC this year, the Joint Policy Advisory Commission on Transportation, which is the region-wide organization that doles out the money. Federal money all goes through Metro, and that thing. I sit as the alternate for the cities. Donna Jordan from Lake Oswego is the rep. She, every year, is a trip to Washington, D.C. to lobby the legislators. Donna is not able to go this year, so I'm actually not positive because they don't want the group to be too big, but I might be only one of two in Clackamas County who will be going. The other one would be Commissioner Lynn Peterson, who sits on JPAC also as a Clackamas County rep. We make appointments with all of our congressional delegation, and I believe, has Nancy gone? Have you gone before to that? They make appointments to each, and
I've never attended.
yeah, it's elected officials that do that. It's
and sometimes there's
and sometimes their staffs. I think there's someone that wants to go. We have never gone, and we have so many important transportation projects that need to be pushed forward, especially in economic stimulus as well. So I would request your permission to attend that conference this March 10th through the 12th. It also coincides with the National League of Cities and National Conference of Mayors. But I'm not sure I'll extend to that. So just right now I'm just requesting that if I decide that it's important for the city, and right now I think that it probably is, I would request permission to do that.
The only condition I think we ought to put on it is if there is not an increase in federal funds to Oregon City by at least 50%, then you have to reimburse it.
That's pressure.
Great. Well, on that, thank you. Are there any other objections?
It was a condition. It wasn't.
It was a condition. I like conditions. Okay. Well, it's just a challenge, isn't it? And getting the funding will be challenging, though there is a more hopeful atmosphere. So, and Nancy, who represents, what do you call it? TPAC? No. Yes. The Transportation Policy Advisory Committee. So she serves as the city's staff representative to that organization. Is in Clackamas County as well. So she's right in there fighting for us all the time, too. Secondly, I was going to send out my usual mayor's update, but I didn't, so this is it. I also met with Congressman, I have a hard time with his name now, Kurt Schrader. I always want to call him Senator Schrader. Congressman Kurt Schrader's staff, and gave her a packet of information, and the good news is she's a carryover from Darlene Hooley's staff, so she really knows Oregon City quite well, and so she was very, very pleased with the update of all of our projects and our transportation projects. So I'm hoping that will kind of be a baseline from which to go. And the good news also is that Congressman Schrader knows our projects very well too, and did some advocation for us at the state level before he transferred offices. I believe also, I haven't gotten confirmation on this, and you will also all be receiving information on Thursday, January 29th, if that's the right day, if that's Thursday, is it Thursday? Okay, I believe it's at 9:30 in Lake Oswego City Hall. Congressman Schrader is going to be having a town hall, well, actually, it will be elected officials, where we will give a presentation on our congressional requests. I'm supposed to be addressing the State Parks Organization in Oregon City about that same time, who are meeting here to talk about some of the Willamette River things. So I may need our commission president to make that report. But anyway, there's that. I will let you know. Since I haven't received anything, maybe he's been called away and they've changed it. But anyway, that's a possibility of coming up. But a lot of my time, since it's the job of the mayor to follow the money, I will be devoting to doing legislation and a lot of work with the federal delegation to see if we can kick over some of those programs that we have been working on. They're so necessary to us. Any other commission reports? Commissioner Smith.
Just two comments. First of all, listening to the city manager's memo or reading it, I have a concern that I just want to tell the people of Oregon City that as I left from a department meeting at our school district today, our school district is in not a very good situation, and seeing this little bit about the halftime police officer, I knew was going to be an issue that comes up in the next couple months. The school district is hosting many community forums in the next month or so. And I would strongly encourage citizens to go to that, especially if you have students in the school district, to be vocal about the things in the district that you want to see stay. And as a city commissioner and as a teacher, I would say that that's one of the top things. I would hate to see the school district have to make a decision to cut that half-time police officer. I think it's one of the top things on the list of things that we really need to advocate for in the school district. So please attend those workshops and give your support to that. It'll help both the city and the school district. The other comment I wanted to make is a thank you to the city manager and to the Parks Department as a whole. I was very excited to drive past the Ermatinger House and to see not only windows that are installed to protect the house from disintegrating, but that they're so nicely done that I spent a good 10 minutes on the street talking to Marge Harding, one of the volunteers at the Ermatinger House, trying to tell her that I wasn't sure if the windows were on the house. Until I actually went to the side of the house and could see the glare and realized that they were there. So they were done in such a great job that from the street it looks like a historic house. And so I really appreciate that. It means a lot. Thank you.
Commissioner Nocita.
I have 3 items I'd like to talk about. One is to let everybody know, the Commission in particular, that I will actually be testifying in the legislature tomorrow before a committee headed by Senator Richard Devlin that is considering a bill on something called instant runoff voting. I'm an electoral reform advocate, and instant runoff voting may have some future applicability to Oregon City because we don't have primaries. It's also called preference voting, and instead of giving people the right to vote for one person, you rank your choices in your preference. It's actually it's enshrined in our state constitution, thanks to none other than the gentleman who's in front of our courthouse, whose name
Uren.
William Simon Uren. And there have been many communities around the state that have been trying to get this implemented in their community, because Ashland in particular they had 7 people run for mayor in November, and so you don't get a mayor who has a majority or even a near majority of the vote, and we have the potential for that in Oregon City. I don't know if it's ever happened. I know both Commissioner Neely and Commissioner Smith in November had a 3-person race,
So did
but
I.
got more than 50% of the vote. And I think Commissioner Neely mentioned too that when he had a 3-person race, well, you didn't have 50%? Okay, so this would allow for an instant runoff to make sure that there's a majority vote.
How does an instant runoff work?
What you do is you rank the choice, and a computer does the instant runoff, and it takes the candidate with the lowest number of votes and knocks that person out and redistributes that person's votes by who they voted for second. So if, for example, Phil Yates if we had instant runoff voting, people who voted first for Phil Yates, their second place votes, either Trent or Rocky, would have gotten all of Phil's votes. It would have been redistributed to the number 2. And so you'd only have 2 people left, and so you'd get a majority.
So that requires a computer voting rather than a mail ballot?
You can do it by hand, but it takes a long time to count. It's a lot better if you do it by computer.
Gosh.
And so that is actually one of the issues, because the clerks across the state have different voting machines, and
Right. Yeah, that's what I was
they tried to get it
alluding to.
through last year, and there was a lot of issues that arose regarding voting machines. But on the other hand, it is a constitutional entitlement, and are you going to allow a machine question to deny people their constitutional entitlement? So that's the kind of thing that we're going through this year.
You'll be testifying not as a city commissioner.
No, I will be identifying myself as someone who happens to be a city commissioner in Oregon City, but I'm not going to present this as the position of the Oregon City Commission. I'm just going to convey the fact that in Oregon City, we have a system with no primary, so this could be an issue in the future in Oregon City. But I will, be disclaiming any position on the city's part. I will just be identifying myself as James Nicita, and that I happen to be a sitting commissioner in Oregon City. And this is what has happened in our town. So that's one of the things I wanted to raise. Second, and this is...
Yeah, back up to that one.
Sure.
Does anyone have any other comment on that?
Well,
That's it.
I mean, I don't. If we were to look at something like that, I would prefer to have a May election and then have a formal
me too.
runoff in November from the city's perspective.
And that wouldn't preclude us. But what the bill is about is it
I
was
understand what
determined
you're
in the
saying.
past that enabling legislation was necessary
Yeah.
to implement the constitutional provision. There are arguments about that, but all the bill would do would be to allow those cities who want to have IRV to be able to have the statutory authority to do so. That's all the bill's about. It's just
It comes
local enabling
Just like
legislation.
anything, when you change something and it's new to the voter, this may be a basis of confusion.
Yeah, it wouldn't force it on any city. It would just allow them to do it if they want to. And
Whichever city chose it, I would think
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
at least when it's initially being done,
yeah.
they're going to be.
Now, there's cities across the country that have done it, and San Francisco is the most prominent. But there are issues. Yes, I agree totally. Second, and this is where I get to play Ed student again after all these years. I actually had a question from the Urban Renewal Commission discussion, and I wanted to pose it to Ed. It dealt with a question that Commissioner Neely raised about soils and liquefaction and earthquake risk. I think you raised the point that and asked Nancy that we don't have municipal ordinances that address earthquake hazards.
That's right.
Okay. So my question to Mr. Sullivan, therefore, is I happen to have some familiarity now with Goal 7 from a case this summer.
Indeed.
And I want to know, the original version of Goal 7 does have earthquakes as one of the natural hazards for which cities must plan. So the question is, since we don't have that in our ordinance, must we apply the earthquake provision in Goal 7 as an approval criterion for the code? And if we don't have to, may we on a discretionary basis?
You don't have to, and you may.
Okay.
But you won't invoke Goal 7. You'll have to take something from our code, and there's probably enough in the code to get to that same position.
Okay. The only reason I raise that is because it is before the Planning Commission right now.
And of course, I understand that. The goal talks about known hazards, and there's an issue of when do you know it? Is it at the time of acknowledgement, or is it the time that it subsequently comes up through new knowledge? And I think the trend that the Court of Appeals has taken is that it's at the time of acknowledgement, so you don't have to do it again. There is a case before the Oregon Supreme Court, you're probably aware of it, involving Deschutes County, I think maybe Jefferson County, over Goal 5 and whether or not if the headwaters of the Metolius were known and thought to be part of the original protected Goal 5 resource, whether you've got to do it later. That may bear on the question, because you may all be falling asleep on this, but this is what I live. There's an old case called Bird versus Stringer, which basically says if you don't catch it in the plan at the time it's acknowledged, you can't raise it again as a goal issue. You can raise it as an ordinance issue. this case that's gone up before the Oregon Supreme Court has the potential of overruling Byrd versus Stringer, which was an Oregon Supreme Court case of about 15 years ago. So the answer is, I'm not sure, but I think the current law does not require you to apply earthquake hazards unless they're in your plan.
Okay. Thank you. My last item kind of echoes Commissioner Smith's comment about the schools. Although I wasn't in a meeting today, I did get the Oregon City News in my mailbox today, and I must say I was really distressed reading this. And I will be attending some of these meetings, and I also will be paying close attention to this too. And as I raised in the campaign, I do want to raise the whole question of the relationship of urban renewal on services such as city schools and police and fire. I have no idea of how to do that, but I do want it in a more prominent place in our discussion. And how that will play out, I don't know. But one of the things I thought about at the Urban Renewal Commission meeting today and reading the staff report was I really, as a result of the staff report, couldn't put my hand on and grasp what the relationship and the impacts of funding that project would be on, in a very quantifiable way, city services. It may be positive. I mean, because the issue was we're going to, invest. It'll create new property taxes. So it may be positive. It may be negative. But I didn't see an analysis, and I want to see an analysis. And I will be raising that issue as we move forward. So, that's it for me.
Did you attend a meeting? I believe you did.
I did. I attended the Regional Urban and Rural Reserves meeting with Dan Drentlaw, and Mayor Norris was there as well.
No,
And,
I wasn't.
well, at the end, well, we saw you there afterwards. Okay.
I was in the hall.
Okay.
I was going to another meeting.
And it was interesting for me because I had never been in that kind of like United Nations of the Metro Portland communities, and seeing how people posture and advance their local interests. And the West Siders seem to be more vocal than the East Siders. It'll be interesting to see how future urban growth boundary decisions are affected by a lot of the information that this group is generating. And I'll point out, too, I didn't know about it at this meeting, but in the Weekend Oregonian, I saw an article on Damascus, you may have seen, that is really interesting to read because that was projected as the next big place of growth. But there was kind of like a citizen revolt against it, and now it may never happen. And there's another issue of, another service question about what the planning technocrats call concurrency, and not growing until you have the services in place to service that
It's a
development.
regional issue as well, because
So-
we were regionally pledged that when it came into the urban growth boundary, we all believed that, not we all, I wasn't involved in, but it was believed that that's where the next big population push would come. And then there's a lot of pullback now because of that very reason that Damascus isn't ready to embrace it. So rather than developing to 90,000 within 10 years, I think was the original projection, I think people are saying 20 to 30 years now that the build-out will occur
Yeah.
because of the partly lack of regional support, partly lack of local support, infrastructure. It's a lot of reasons. So, thank you. Any others? We are adjourned.